Hello, everyone. My name is Manolis Funerolakis, the founder and producer of Reality Crowd TV, and welcome to Reality Crowd TV episode 24. $1.5 million raised in 6 consecutive campaigns. We have a great show today, 2 great guests. But before we get to the actual nuts and bolts of the show, I'd like to have all the viewers just share with you a few ground rules that we have today. If you have followed the circle of Reality Crowd TV, you will be able to use the question and answers application in the Hangout at any time. Once you submit the question, we will certainly get to those questions when the time is appropriate, and we would be happy to answer any questions directed toward anyone on the show. Additionally, you can reach out to our humble guests through the event page links. We have all the links to their personal websites, and we also have links to the articles that were written about them. And so you'll be able to freely reach out to them as well. So thank you all once again for joining episode 24, and let's get to the introductions of our guests. First, we have Cheryl Connor, the founder of Snap Connor PR. And Cheryl, thank you for joining us, and please introduce yourself.
Well, like you said, I'm Cheryl Snap Connor, and I run a public relations agency. So crowdfunding is an increasing part of that, and love what I do. I'm one of the few people who's able to say I'm doing what I was born to do. So it's a good thing. That is
remarkable. If we were only all so lucky, you know, that's excellent. And then our special guest as well is Jeff Hayes, the founder and a film producer and crowdfunding expert from Jeff Hayes Films. And Jeff, thank you for joining us, and please introduce yourself as well.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I'm a filmmaker, and that's my primary vocation. I'm an accidental expert in crowdfunding, only because if you're making films, that generally means you're out raising money from investors every time you start a new project. And for me, crowdfunding has become a huge advantage. It's a wonderful way to finance films.
Absolutely. I mean, that category seems to be gaining a lot of traction in crowdfunding, and it's really what's getting most of the press, because of course you have a lot of celebrities who do films, and they're starting to enter as well. So I mean, it's one of the fastest growing categories. So I would like to actually talk to you, and we'll do something kind of unique today. Cheryl is actually the co-host with me today. We're going to be cross-interviewing Jeff, and actually, Cheryl, maybe you could tell us about how you met Jeff, and how you actually wrote an article about him.
Okay. I heard about Jeff by legend before I met him. I heard great things from a friend we have in common, Gail Kingsbury. She said, "You've got to meet Jeff Hayes." She set up an email introduction. Then, by coincidence, I met Jeff in person at a CEO Space, just networking luncheon event. Met him in person, heard about what he is doing in crowdfunding, and said, "I'd like to write about that. Will you give me an interview?" And he did. He went on the record with way more than I expected, but the article has been really popular. I don't think there's anyone who's seen it yet who hasn't come to me and said there are at least 3 things that they consider brilliant and they'd never have thought of before.
Absolutely.
That's been fun. It's fun to be able to reach that many entrepreneurs through a public medium, and I'm excited because I don't know yet either just what the reaction has been from Jeff's point of view, but I've heard a lot of good response since that aired.
Yeah, Jeff, have you actually received a lot of feedback from that particular article?
Well, and Cheryl, when you said we'll, at the beginning in the intro, you said my humble guest, and we'll have to narrow that down to Cheryl, because she really is humble. I'm the other side of that equation, but Cheryl is a powerhouse, and so when she writes about you, it's going to be seen by a lot of people. So yeah, that was a huge boost to me and what I'm doing. But again, I don't know that it matters so much the quality of the information as it is that Cheryl chooses to write about you. She writes about a lot of entrepreneurs and really intriguing entrepreneurial stories. So she's somebody to follow. Period.
Absolutely, and it's no easy feat to be a contributor to Forbes and Wall Street Journal. So you know, Cheryl, you've obviously put your time in to be recognized as a great writer and a great investigator. So again, we're very happy to have you on board.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. So Jeff, you've done 6 campaigns, and within the 6 campaigns, and maybe it's more since the article's been written, and you've raised $1.5 million. And I really encourage people to read that article, because right before the show started, I read through all 14 tips that you had given in the article, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot specifically about when PR should be engaged, because I always thought that PR should be built up well before, you know, you launch, and then you kind of line them up to release their article within the first week. But I guess share with us your experience with one of your projects, and kind of share with us when you engaged PR.
So this is, and again, my perspective is only my perspective. I look at other people that have done very successful campaigns and done them differently, and so my story is really more of a scrappier story, in that, you know, we didn't have great resources to start out. The first campaign I did on Kickstarter. I'm now exclusively doing campaigns on Indiegogo, and I can give you a ton of reasons, you know, later in this. But my first campaign was on Kickstarter, and I had 500 business cards that a friend of mine and I had collected at a chiropractic seminar, and I had 450 Facebook friends, and so we were already $600,000 or $700,000 into making the film. It was originally called Medical Ink in our Kickstarter program, Medical Ink. So we were already $600,000 or $700,000 into, you know, this project, and of course running really short of money. So it wasn't like I decided, well, I don't want to engage PR yet. I couldn't afford to engage, you know, anything but a cameraman. You know, so it was, and you know, from that really inauspicious beginning, you know, we learned a lot. We raised $240,000. Literally from the time that we thought of the idea of, hey, maybe we could do a Kickstarter campaign, because I'd read about the Pebble watch, or my son tweeted about it, and I think it was only at about 2 million when I first started following it. And as we watched that, I thought, I can do this. And just from watching that program, 40 days after we made the decision to do that, we had 240,000 that came in from Kickstarter, and another 70,000 that came in from, you know, one was a Canadian, but people that wanted to give money to us directly. But it was, you know, it was not like this. We worked our way to make that happen. I've since followed it and done, and so we built on what we learned. So to get to your question about PR, what I've noticed is I read articles about the most intriguing articles, about crowdfunding campaigns are where the reporters are reporting on the huge success of the campaign, and so that's what's news. You know, the fact that Jeff Hayes is finally coming out with another documentary is not really news, you know, except maybe to my kids and grandkids. But the people at Cheryl Snap Connor is not calling me up going, "What's your next movie?" And so, however, if I can do a campaign that is surprisingly successful, now that's news. Now there's something to write about. So my philosophy on PR, unless you have big guns and a big story and something great to tell at the start, build your campaign, make a story out of your campaign, and then engage PR, and then it can be like a snowball gathering momentum into an avalanche.
Very interesting. Cheryl, would you agree with that strategy?
I mostly agree, but I actually didn't ask my partners before I reported that point and didn't counter it. They've given me some pretty good evidence, too, to consider doing ramp-up articles. Maybe there's a need that this product addresses, so you're not really doing PR around the product itself, but you're doing something that builds up the anticipation. Now, to Jeff's point, the reporters just get weary of hearing people say, please, please cover me, I've got a campaign, and feeling like it's owed. And they're just, that's free labor, and it doesn't really benefit the audience. We've had reporters even be candid with us and say, you know, we're not sure the product's going to succeed. We want to see it have legs under it before we invest the time and even lead our readers astray. But there's another factor too, and we're actually working on this right now with one of the clients we have. A very intriguing product, I know Jeff's aware of it, but I'm not going to name them here, is delayed. And so PR becomes a concept that is about managing those audiences. People who've invested, they need to know what's up. They need to know if they can still be confident. They need to be kept in the loop. So it does kind of build its own necessity once you start the process. If anything changes and you've got to work with those communities and publics in a way you didn't expect, that's PR all the way. So mostly I agree with him, but there are a few other factors to consider as well.
Sure, and I mean, you know, if you have a tangible tech product, for instance, I know what works well is you send the people the prototype in advance, you give it to the PR people for free, the bloggers and the journalists, so they can actually touch and feel it, and then they can have an embargo on it, I guess they call it, where it's they write a story and they wait to release it until when you launch. In that case, I could see that it would be good to have that if you have a tangible product that someone might want to write about, because they could actually verify that this is indeed a real-life thing. But you're right. To Jeff's point, in other cases, PR professionals and bloggers and journalists, they must be getting bombarded day in and day out by hundreds of requests now, and it's just going to get worse as more people learn about crowdfunding. That, you know, eventually it needs to be news. It's, you know, it's old news just to write about it. Now it's let's kind of write about them when maybe they don't even need our help anymore, you know?
Right. Well, and some of these reporters, they're looking at products, and maybe the product is tangible. There's even a working unit. But what if the campaign doesn't succeed? What if they don't get enough funding behind them to take it to market? Then it still isn't very good use of their time and not very relevant to their readership. We do less and less with embargoes anymore because reporters have short attention spans. To get their attention in the first place and then to ask them to write but to hold it secret until a certain time, we've kind of shot ourselves in a couple of feet. So we prefer to give them the news when they're free to run it. So if we can get their attention once, they're ready to go. They have what they need. And something that is tangible that they can photograph, that they can hold, that's an advantage. It's better than software. Selling the values of something you can't put up on a screen is hard to do. But think about, there's one product that we represented that is My Lifter. It's like a winch, a crane. It's so big nobody can test it. They had a successful campaign, and in fact they even had partnership offers come from people who saw the campaign and who saw the PR. But expecting the PR, and I think Jeff will agree with this fully, expecting PR to do the job of sales, bad plan. It's a support for sales. It isn't the replacement for sales.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Great. And so,
you know, the entrepreneur always wants to get off the hot seat. I want to get off the hot seat. You want to get off the, you know, how great would it be for somebody to show up and go, listen, I heard about you through a friend of a friend, and I brought you a check for a couple of $1 million. Will you please go execute your business plan? Okay, it's not going to happen. And so for most of us. And so the reality is, if it is to be, it's up to me. I've got to figure out how can I do this step by step by step. You know, I also want to point out, I divide the crowdfunding world into 3 areas. One is epic mission, 2 is I want it, and 3 is a combination of the 2 of them. And so I tend to live in the epic mission. Join me, and together we're going to do something epic that we could not do individually. And that's a very positive message to take into a crowdfunding campaign. The other side of that is, if you have a tech product that everybody who sees it wants it, if they just want it, then that product is news up front, and that product deserves what if you can get all the blog, if you get that in TechCrunch, you get that in all the blogs, then you're going to have something. The best is a combination of the 2 of them, where you have something that's an epic mission that everybody wants. And I view that as where Pebble Watch fell in that category. where it was something that everybody, that saw it in that category. The tech guy who contributed to that campaign, and it was mostly guys who contributed to that campaign, those guys, it was also join us and we will make this together. We can do this. It won't exist unless we do it together. And so now that's why that campaign did 10 million, is because it was the I hate to use the perfect storm metaphor, but it was a combination of both of those categories. But in my opinion, you need to be in one of them. It either needs to be that people will be interested in joining you on, or it needs to be a product that they already want. If you're outside of those two categories, it may not be appropriate for crowdfunding. There may, if it's a product nobody wants, and there's no real soul to it, maybe you should just keep searching.
Get to know sooner than later.
Yes.
You're right, actually, and actually that's one thing that I think people don't realize they have to do before they go out and crowdfund. I mean, at least at a basic level, they must validate that there is a market for whatever they're trying to crowdfund. And I think a lot of people go into crowdfunding thinking that I have a great idea and it's enough, it's about me, it's about my idea. But if you don't go to validate it first, you might put yourself in a position where you're paying money out there to try to validate something through crowdfunding that would never ever be validated. So it's
I think that crowdfunding is a great place to validate or invalidate your concept. But even when you talk about it, where it's about me, this is one of the I see a lot of the things that people write when they're writing their one of the things your product should do is solve somebody's pain. And I watch people write crowdfunding pitches and they talk about pain, but unfortunately they're talking about their own pain. And so they go to help me, I've worked so hard to make this happen, I've gone 2 years without pay, would you please help me do this? And the audience is not about the pain of the author, they're about the pain of the reader. And so other than the wasted space at Kickstarter and Indiegogo and all these places, this is a great place for these people to go get their teeth kicked in and learn how to create a product. To me, it's almost like watching the early episodes of American Idol, when you have the delusional people that they like to film who are certain they're the next American Idol, although they've never really put in any time. You put it out in the crowd will vote very quickly, and and if your grand dream is not going to happen, great. We're not trees. We don't have to bloom where we're planted. We can, you can move to another project. You can keep refining your idea until you have something that's useful in the marketplace.
Yes, and you said it in a way that was eloquent and blunt at the same time, and I liked how you did that.
My kids would accuse me of that. Eloquently blunt, mostly blunt.
Yeah, no, I mean you said it in a way that it just gets it across very nicely, and you're right. I mean, it kind of leads me to kind of the next question. For each campaign, how long do you plan before you launch? Like, how long is your typical planning period when you say that you're going to use crowdfunding and when you actually launch?
And this is another one where I differ from all the experts, but what's funny is most of the experts that I know in this space are consultants, and they consult on other people's campaigns. I'm thinking of one person in particular who talks about he's been involved in raising $5 million in successful campaigns. But the wonderful thing about being a consultant is he can list all his successful campaigns, and he doesn't list any of his failures. Now, if you go to Indiegogo and Kickstarter and search for Jeff Hayes, my track record is there. There is no place to hide. The only campaigns I've done are mine, and if I fail, it's there for everybody to see. So it brings a different level of I may not be right. I'm certainly right about my experience, and so that's really all I can comment on. But I think we did 4 campaigns for the movie Bought. And Slava Rubin, the founder of Indiegogo, said, "Who knew you could do 4 campaigns on one movie?" So the founder of Indiegogo didn't even know you could do 4 campaigns on one film. Well, neither did I, and so I think we prepared on the last campaign. We raised $97,000, and I believe we prepared for 3 days. And so I read people that you need to spend 6 months or 4 months preparing for a crowdfunding campaign. I tend to believe if you know what you're doing and you have something that's valuable and you have a way to access an audience, then I don't know what I would possibly do for 4 to 6 months to launch a campaign. I'm launching a campaign Monday or Tuesday on Indiegogo for a film called The Wealth Gap. This campaign, I've been working on the campaign for 2 months. I got a company called Agora Financial to agree to put up $500,000 in matching funds, and so for every dollar we raise up to $500,000, they'll match it dollar for dollar. And so we'll raise $1 million in this campaign. This will be the biggest that I've ever done, and I've certainly put more time and effort into this. And this has been 2 months while I'm finishing a movie, working on a TV show, and doing pre-production on 2 other films, and I have a staff of 2 here in my office. So, when people tell me, oh, I had 4 people working, I'm like, I don't know what they'd do. So anyway, it's not that hard once you focus on the big chunks and do the important things. Like getting somebody to give you $500,000 in matching funds. That's a big chunk.
That is. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Kudos. Has anyone else done that?
I don't know. It's like usually most people think in terms of causes when they do that. What I found with crowdfunding, when I can go to an investor and say, tell you what, keep your money in your pocket. I want you to put $500,000 in this film, but instead of giving me the check, let me go out and match it. And so now for the investor, I'm doubling his equity and so I'm putting the monkey is on my back. And so if I go out and raise $52,000, he only writes a check for $52,000. But every dollar of equity that he's buying in my project is in effect with no dilution. And so this is a much better deal for the investor. So using crowdfunding as a tool to get traditional equity is a way underplayed strategy that we've done 3 times.
It's brilliant.
Yeah,
I agree.
I have a question actually about that. So you're saying that you're publicly disclosing that you have this gentleman, or rather this company, Agora Financial. You're publicly disclosing that you have a matching of $500,000.
Correct.
But he is not going to be putting that through at Indiegogo. You're going to close in the Indiegogo, then on the back end you'll do the paperwork to get him an investment in the actual film?
That's correct. So we list it on Indiegogo and talk about it. Now, if you do it with a certified nonprofit, Indiegogo will actually put a counter on, and you do this in advance and give them enough time, they will put a counter on your page where you can show the dollar that you get donated from somebody that comes to the page, and it'll show the matching dollar, but it needs to be from a verified nonprofit if you're doing it where the money goes through Indiegogo that way. In this, we made Indiegogo aware this is what we were doing, but the money doesn't go through Indiegogo. That's just based on the results of the Indiegogo campaign. That's how much the investor is going to manage.
Very interesting. We actually have our first question, and then Cheryl, I'll let you ask a question to Jeff as well. Let me just see we have David Karam from crowdfundplanning.com. Thank you for watching, David. And he has a question and a comment. Raising money for film and financing it are important. Your 6 crowdfunding projects and success is fantastic. I personally have learned a lot from your articles. How do you address distributions? Can one use crowdfunding to solve the film distribution challenge?
So, to me, the crowdfunding is the beginning of the distribution strategy. On the film that I'm just finishing called Bought, it is a lot of groups that are interested in the topics that it's about. It's a controversial alternative medicine or medical issues, and so these topics that the film is about have lots of groups. There's lots of GMO groups that are going to promote it. So we signed up with a player called Yekra, YEKRA, that is a affiliate-based streaming platform that originally released the movie Thrive, which has now been streamed 23 million times. And so they built this player for that. So with us, the crowdfunding list in BOT, we added 5,000 contributors in the process of 4 campaigns for BOT. So 5,000 people that now, when somebody crowdfunds, they're not passive people. These are activists, and so these 5,000 people become our base for finding, 5,000, 10,000 affiliates to have the Yekra player on their site and show BOT the movie on their site and get it out to their list. So I see the whole thing, for the first time, a filmmaker has a way to create an integrated platform, starting with crowdfunding, build an audience as you make the film, continue to supply clips and fan the flames with that audience, and then use that as a springboard for a digital distribution strategy that bypasses all of the traditional players.
Very interesting. I think that answers David's question perfectly. Actually, that's brilliant. Excellent. So Cheryl,
yes.
you have a question?
I want to ask some questions. So
Yes.
when even before this article came out, I know that you were already getting a lot of questions, attention, just like this Pied Piper expert that people were calling upon for expertise in their own campaigns. And we mentioned 2 of them in the article, and that's been, I can't remember how long ago, 6 weeks. But in any case, I'm curious how the people you've been advising are doing.
So the only one I remember was Brockett, and who was the
Brockett.
second? Yeah, so the Brockett gals did a brief launch, and when I saw it, I asked them to pull it down, and we have been helping them redo their campaign from the start, and I'm eager for them to relaunch the campaign. It's funny, I just filmed a woman 2 weeks ago named Victoria LeBaum, who has done 27 TV commercials, including a Super Bowl commercial, and I filmed an hour video of her teaching people how to do videos. Just because I would tell people, okay, go make a video for your crowdfunding campaign, and I had no idea how bad that could really turn out. It's some of the things knowledge that you have you take for granted, and so I don't want to say the personalities of the 2 wonderful gals from Brockett were amazingly hidden during their video.
But what if they hadn't had you? They'd have suffered through this and thought, why is it not going as well as we thought?
Isn't that, I know, and this is where, and I'm creating a crowdfunding course to try to help people. Literally, part of it is just going to be so I don't have to do it anymore.
Right.
But what I really did learn is one of the places, the 2 areas where they need the most help is, number 1, how they write their copy, how they write what their message is, what the things they need to cover, and it really is a mindset. People, for some reason, fall into the trap of talking from their own mindset. Here's how this will help me, and if once they get it in, this is not about you, it's about the reader. Then they improve. Then the other deal is following those same copy points. Then doing the video with that same messaging, but just some real basics of how to do the messaging. This Victoria LeBaum, you can her last name is Labalme. She's married to Frank Oz. Frank Oz is Yoda. He's not only the voice of Yoda, he is the puppeteer. It's his hand that's doing Yoda's eyebrows. He was the Cookie Monster. He was Jim Henson's partner. He directed a dozen films that did all the Little Shop of Horrors and Bowfinger, all the Steve Martin movies. Anyway, a brilliant director. His wife, Victoria LeBaum, and she has great videos on her website that will help coach people on how to talk. You know, like even as I'm like right now, I'm looking at Cheryl's picture on my screen, where Victoria would tell me if I really want to communicate well, I should be looking at the camera on my computer and looking and talking directly to people instead of looking down and talking to Cheryl. But I'm too lazy to do that right now. But I guarantee you, if I was doing a pitch for money right now, I wouldn't be looking at the little Cheryl down at the bottom. I would be looking right in that lens of that camera and trying to talk through to the person, the single person who's sitting on the other side watching that video.
You know, communication is everything. We're going to have to stay close on that. Everything. It's the same way in publishing, that people get this persona about them. The first times that they start to write something, it's me, it's my voice, it's my persona, and there's that masthead, and nobody cares. They don't care what you dreamed about on your annual Harley trip. They don't care. Even if it's noble and inspiring, they do not care. They care about what will help them succeed. That's why your article was so successful.
And let me tell you, and that really is, if we can communicate that one message, that it is not about me, it's about the reader. What is their pain or what is their gain? You know, what is, you know, helping them be successful or helping get them out of trouble. If people don't learn anything but that, then this will be a very valuable.
It would. I agree. Well, the other person, I don't know that they actually started a campaign, but it was the professor who was brilliant, who wanted to write a book. He couldn't because he had a wife and a baby, and you said, what would it take to get
Soul.
a hero?
Yeah, Soul. And he has not started his campaign yet, and I can't wait for him to do that. Yeah, he was the engineer with a double master's degree and two kids, and it's funny. There's several people that I have pleaded with to do campaigns. And then there are some that are now in the pipeline that are launching, that are doing spectacular in their pre-work, one of which I advised to. He told me he was through raising money, his list was dead, he's raised $9 million for his business, he needs to raise a couple of million more. And I came up with a strategy for him that I was doing for me as well. Maybe you could get your investors to put up $500,000 if you could go get another $500,000. And in the last 45 days, he's gotten commitments from his investor groups for $500,000 based on doing a crowdfunding campaign. And this is to a group that was fatigued. You know, they're tired, and so I have never been so hopeful for entrepreneurship as I am right now. When entrepreneurs can access capital, I don't do anything with equity crowdfunding, but even to have the equity crowdfunding option and to have the donor crowdfunding option, these were tools that didn't exist 3 and 4 years ago.
I know.
And
you've taken it to another level. I can't say how impressed I am that you've done that. In fact, I thought, and I'm supposed to be an expert, I'm advising companies, I thought that the donor crowdfunding was very lightweight. That if you get serious into business, you're getting into equity. But I see what you're doing, and it's so much less complicated. You're not running the risks, everybody debating and worried about the kind of securities risks they might be taking. You've sidestepped all of that. Everything.
I want no part of the equity crowdfunding, and I'm so glad it's there. And it needs to be. I'm just not in that business. But as you look at the multi-million-dollar campaigns that are happening right now, I mean, just the films that have raised. Somebody sent me one this morning. 1.6 million raised. 1.8 million raised. This is for filmmakers. This is amazing. And I guess LeVar Burton's Reading Rainbow campaign on Kickstarter, but then the Solar Roadways campaign, I think that's probably finished now at 2 million plus on $1 million campaign. Just brilliant. Love this stuff.
Well, and another aspect of it that is really intriguing to me is that all of the reports are estimating how much of the investment pool that exists for equity crowdfunding is now getting out, or maybe will be able to get out more efficiently because of equity crowdfunding. Well, all of the money going into donor crowdfunding, where was it? It wasn't even on the grid in that equation.
Yeah.
It was disposable income. Now it's putting entrepreneurs to work. I love that.
That the other thing that it's doing is it's allowing people to participate in creating products that they want, creating things that they want to believe in and participate in. I had investors in a film a while back that it was a bunch of mortgage officers, and their job was very boring. And I realized that investing in a film for them was the most exciting thing they had happening. Well, investing in a crowdfunding project that is near and dear to your heart, making a donation, you become a part. You're not an equity owner, but you're a creator in that.
You're
project.
an entrepreneur, in a sense.
Yeah, and so it's vicariously providing I can't wait to see what evolves from this. I hope I'm nimble enough to stay with. YouTube now has announced that they're letting people take tips of $1 to $500. So I've signed up as a beta. They haven't approved me yet, but who knows what that means? When I have the capacity to produce hundreds of shorts for each film that I do that can be out there that people can leave tips. I think of the YouTube videos that I've seen where you're blown away by a 14-year-old guitar player. I would leave $2 every time and I remember one specific video that this kid was so great, and it had like 5 million views. Think of the people that would just leave $1, $2, $20, $10. It actually could turn into staggering amounts of money. And this new thing from YouTube, I don't even know what that means. I just want to be there.
Mm-hmm. Great thing. Everything that's difficult, here's a shining spot in it all.
Absolutely.
Totally. And the fact that you have Google, and YouTube coming in, the fact that you have Indiegogo raising $40 million from people like Richard Branson. This isn't something that's going away. This is something that's transforming everything. Every industry is being disrupted by this, and in a way, the middlemen are actually, certain middlemen are being eliminated because of this technology. So, for better or worse, it's going to have positive and negative effects. Positive effects for the consumer, negative effects for the middlemen. But that's just the nature of the beast when a disruptive technology comes in and completely changes the world for the majority for the better, but for the people who relied on the old world for the worse. So I wanted to actually talk about that. Actually, we do have another question. Let me bring this up. This is David Karam again. This is David Karam, Crowdfund Planning. Will you take a daily will you write in a daily notebook during and after your existing crowdfunding campaigns and publish it as an ebook? And here's a good question. Or have a cameraman following you and make a real reality campaign show for a TV show? So I guess he's asking, have you considered doing a reality TV show about crowdfunding?
So having produced reality TV shows, the first thing you need to know about reality TV is there is no reality in reality TV, and so the second is I probably would rather shoot my own foot off than have a camera following me around all day. I love the idea of doing a daily journal on it. There is so much that. Like even today, I'm launching this Wealth Gap campaign on Indiegogo on either Monday. As we were going through the page today, I've got cartoons on the page that I think are great, and everybody else thinks it's time for them to leave the page. We got some graphics in. The page is starting, but as we go through this evolution this week, if you watch the way that page has changed over the week until finally what we released. We've put a lot of work into it and a lot of thought, and this is just for the first launch. And then once we launch this page, what's great about crowdfunding is then you're allowed to iterate with your crowd, with with your tribe, and you may find that a lot of what's on your page is useless, people don't like, and we can change that. And over the lifetime of the campaign, it is a marketing exercise on a daily basis. Every campaign will ebb and flow, and there's quiet parts. But this morning I was out hiking in the mountains with my dog, and I always, before I launch these campaigns, I'm like, oh geez, what if nobody comes? What if this is a total failure? What if if after day 3 it says dollars raised 0, and everybody votes, we hate your new movie, Jeff. And I have to laugh at my own insecurities, and you just suck it up. This would be fun stuff to write about. So he's got a great idea, and I think everybody should know that before you press the turn live button, everybody is going to have those fears and trepidations, and what if the baby is ugly?
Yes, and so, but here's the great thing, and this is there's another gentleman that I know in the gaming space who I think has done 15 or over 10 successful Kickstarters. Tasty Minstrel Games, Michael Mendez. Have you heard of him?
No.
Yeah, Michael Mendez is with Tasty Minstrel Games. He's done, I think, over 10 Kickstarters in a row, raised over $1 million. And what he told me when I talked to him, and I'm going to ask you the same question, from moment 1, when you did your first campaign, to the 6th one, your list went from the 500 business cards to thousands of people now. So each time, your time to prepare kind of goes shorter in a sense, because you already have an engaged tribe, an engaged group of people who likes what you do. So talk about that. It's kind of gotten easier for you because of the tribe and the engagement that you built up, and the community you've really built around what you do. Is that accurate?
I don't think so. So no. So my previous 2 films were both in the medical space, and so that was absolutely my first film helped set me up for the second. So now we have a list of about 12,000 people, but those people contributed for their reasons, not for my reasons. So they're not interested in Jeff Hayes films. They were interested in what I gave them a tool that allowed them to rally around to promote some really core beliefs that are important to them. My next film on the wealth gap has nothing to do with ideas that are of importance with that existing group. And so I'll let them know, and I have some cachet with that group, but these are not people who, I can't wait for the next Jeff Hayes film. They were interested in me because I was serving them. Mm-hmm. Now this new project, I'm serving a completely different group, and one of the things that I've done better than I ever have before is I've gone out and I've identified my affinity groups. I've identified my team members who are going to love this project and will help me promote it. And so I will build a new list, but I'm really not anticipating a lot of crossover. So again, every time the responsibility lands on me, I've been on Kickstarter's homepage, and I've been on Indiegogo's homepage. I've been in their newsletter. The bump that we got from that was welcome, but I'm the horse pulling the wagon. My team, we're the horses pulling the wagon. If I expect somebody else to pull the wagon, then I'm in trouble.
Absolutely. You're so right. And you were going to say also, you brought it up, why are you now going exclusively with Indiegogo instead of Kickstarter? What did you have a bad experience with Kickstarter? And I'll tell you that I've had a bad experience with them. So go ahead. Yeah.
It's not even really a bad experience. So philosophically, when I switched from the second film that I did was so controversial, we took it to to Kickstarter first, and Kickstarter rejected the idea, even though I'd had a very successful campaign with them, but they felt it was a too controversial a topic, so I was forced into going with Indiegogo, which I'd already done a smaller campaign with them for Medical Inc. And so I and at that time, Kickstarter's analytics pages were much better than Indiegogo's, and so we had to put up with some crap to use Indiegogo. This was just 18 months ago, or I mean, it was a very short time ago. And during that, my first campaign with them, they re-released new analytics. They've continued to innovate and grow. So now I believe that the services they offer are from on just their digital services are equal to or better than Kickstarter. But I've also found their customer service team, the things they're doing, they're trying harder. And I have now there's somebody I can call and talk to on the phone, and this is available for people. You can say, hey, I need help with this. They're eager to help people, and I've found that was bigger than what was available at Kickstarter. But the real key distinction is we started using Facebook advertising. And there's some very clever ways to use Facebook advertising. This last campaign, I uploaded my list, and they mirrored my list, and so they gave me back 80,000 people who looked just like my contributors that I could advertise to. We started pushing for likes on our campaign, and then I would advertise with Facebook ads to the friends of the people who liked our campaign. We were able to do Facebook retargeting, where people who visited our page and didn't contribute, we could run Facebook ads to them. So Facebook integration became really important, and this was all funded with the 20% of my money that came in from PayPal. So Indiegogo allows you, now most people, if it's a product, they'll get as much as 40% will come in on PayPal. For me, all my campaigns, we run 20% comes in on PayPal. Indiegogo gives you that money immediately. And so this was the cash flow that we used to fund our Facebook and made our ad campaign self-funding. It set our budget for us, so we couldn't go over 20%. Our budget was just whatever PayPal money came in. So that, to me, was the critical distinction, is now I have a self-funding, intelligent ad campaign that I can run through my campaign because of the fact that Indiegogo releases that money immediately.
That's great.
Wow.
It's the difference between succeeding and failing. So I don't know how you could make another choice.
Sure. So actually, then let me ask you this question. Do you build that in to how much you set your goal at? Is 20% of my goal is going to go towards advertising that comes in through PayPal?
After this last time I did, and so it also affects the rewards that I choose. And so, like, we don't do all my rewards now below $50. I try to keep digital, and so I want to, I used to have a T-shirt for $25, and this is when I discovered it cost you $20 to send a T-shirt to Australia, and so learning.
Just live and learn.
Yes, learning these T-shirts that seem like a great idea until you buy and ship T-shirts, and so you really do have to sit and make sure this works out.
Absolutely, I think it's a great strategy that you bring up. Now, here's something that I was wondering if people do. What if you're a small business and you're running an Indiegogo and you have an existing customer base that is paying you, let's say, through your normal e-commerce channels? If you wanted to help make your project go viral, could you ask your customers and say, it's Customer Appreciation Month, can you please just put the money through our campaign, and you'll still get the goods on that end, and you'll also get this extra perk? Is that allowed by Indiegogo? Can you do that? Have you heard of anyone doing that?
Well, yeah, of course you can, and they're happy to have any money run through there. They just get a percentage. They're happy to have any money run through there that you want. But on all this stuff, you got to keep your head about you and not get. It's funny, like if you want to reach a celebrity, wait till they write a book. Like they have these mountains around, a moat around them. You can never reach a celebrity. All of a sudden, if they write a book, they'll be sitting in some
find
Barnes
you.
and Noble with 12 people, and for an afternoon. All of a sudden, they're available to everybody. And people do that on their crowdfunding campaigns. They get caught up in the competition of it, and they'll do stupid things that cost them money because they want their crowdfunding campaign to succeed. So you got to make sure all of this, this stuff makes sense. Now, the one thing I'm looking at in crowdfunding, and even in the films that I choose to make, we're evolving our business to where each product becomes the front end of a funnel. And so if you have your crowdfunding campaign and the products you do is the front end of a funnel, that you have a back end that you can have higher priced products that would be of interest to this same group. Now all of a sudden it becomes more attractive to gather more names because you have a reason to be talking to those people on a long-term basis, and that's where real long-term success is going to come in. When I do a movie streaming for $4.95, and I'm lucky to make $1.50 out of that $4.95, it's not that $1.50 that's the real value. It's that relationship with that customer that I have the potential to build, and if I can build trust in that relationship, then can I continue to help solve the problem that caused them to stream that film.
Very interesting.
And so there's a little bit of a clue toward where the real smart business model is in all of this.
Makes sense. Wow. So we actually have another question. David Karam, it says, have you ever used the social tool Thunderclap.it to raise social supporters who essentially give you implicit permission to broadcast one of your messages across their social media channels? So if you were to go to the website Thunderclap.it, it's basically a crowd speaking platform. Have you ever used that before, Jeff?
I have not, and somebody in our last campaign recommended it to me. I remember going to the website, and I haven't, and so I can't comment on whether it's brilliant or I don't know. I haven't used it.
Cheryl, have you ever used that or
I've never used it.
Cool. I've actually seen it been used in effectively where 250 people signed on to the crowd speaking platform Thunderclap, and the 250, it was for this crowdfunding website headfunder.com. They used it to launch their actual platform to announce to the world that they're open for business, and 250 people actually created 16 million impressions.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a very effective tool, and David, thank you for sharing that with us. Yeah, it's a very effective tool. There's amazing things. The technology that is out there, you could make a career just trying to figure out all this new tools out there for entrepreneurs, because there's just so many out there that if you could figure out how to utilize them effectively and really dig in and do trial and error, some of these things could be huge for crowdfunding people. So Cheryl, I'd like you to actually share with us an experience you had where PR kind of made the difference in a campaign. Can you share with us kind of one of those stories?
Let's see. Well, My Lifter was one of them. That was one that over the turn of the year, so it was kind of a tricky time of year, and it wasn't your normal device that you would see. It was like a crane for lifting hugely heavy objects. So not typical, not the kind of sexy, glossy thing, but that company actually got acquisition partnership offers based on that campaign. In addition to the campaign and the earnings, other things came to occur. There are also some, we represent Salt Lake Comic-Con. That is a really fun account. It's made for everything pop culture. That scenario and crowdfunding go together are about how to sell your product through Crowdway. The people who write the comic books, they're really appealing for reach on the trade show floor can be expanded dramatically if you take it online as well. We've also seen people who are using that, remembering that long after that campaign is through, the page is still up there. You can continue to add materials. People can still find you as a result of it. URL that's easy to remember. And routes that we're paying to another. All of that traffic and interest goes with him. I think that all of those things can really make the difference.
That's great. That is great. So actually, can you expand on that, Jeff? You say that you create a URL, you name it something that's relevant to what you're doing, and then anyone who hits that, do you couple that with Google AdWords, or how do you work that?
This is one of those really practical things that happened in my first Medical Ink campaign, and I was invited to speak at a chiropractic conference, and chiropractors were uniquely interested in my Medical Ink film, and so there I was. I had a Kickstarter campaign, and I had an audience in front of me of 1,000 people, and I've got to stand there and go, please go to kickstarter.com/medical-ink HTML 54301 and even as I was saying these words, I was realizing I might as well have skipped the whole thing. I've flown here to talk to this group to promote the campaign, and it was a complete waste of time because I didn't have the ability to communicate. So I registered a domain for chiropractors for that group, supportchiromovie.com. And so when I directed that to my Kickstarter campaign, so then when I was talking to any chiropractic group, it was a real simple supportchiromovie.com. And then as we got toward the end of the campaign, and I realized my Kickstarter campaign was coming to an end, and I'm getting calls from people, hey, I just found out about your campaign. I set up a mirror image of the campaign at Rocket Hub. And so at midnight, when my campaign ended at Kickstarter, at 12:01, it went live at Rocket Hub, and I redirected at GoDaddy, my supportchiromovie.com, to go from Rocket Hub. And I don't remember how much. I think it was 30,000. I'll have to go back and 30,000 that came in just from the momentum of the Kickstarter campaign of people that were late to the party. And so again, this is not. There was no real genius here. It's retro. It's like Mr. Magoo finding his way through a building. But this is real experience. Once you stand in front of a group and try and give Indiegogo.com/bought the movie -943782. It doesn't take long to figure this one out.
That is brilliant. Because I actually believe that live events are very powerful. So, it'd be a good strategy for many people to use depending on what they're, for instance, if you're a musician, how great would it be to have that URL at a concert? You go to a concert, they love you, just say, support banjo movie or supportbanjomusic.com, whatever the case may be.
Absolutely. And you use it over and over. With Bought the Movie, we had supportboughtmovie.com, and I used that same URL through 4 separate campaigns on Indiegogo, and would just redirect it, and it's and obviously for the Wealth Gap, supportgapmovie.com is the first thing I registered.
Wow. Well, I want to ask you both a question. When Reality Crowd TV actually goes into production, would either of you and both of you like to be potential experts to show up on the show? Because Cheryl, you're a genius on PR. Jeff, you're a genius on just the whole campaign in general. Would you guys like to be experts on the show when it goes into production?
Well, I'd say you're a genius on selling by asking us live on the show. What can we say? But yes, of course, happy to do it.
I wish you so much luck with that. that's a very tough marketplace. I'd be happy to be an expert on anything, just so I could prove to my kids I'm an expert.
There we go.
Sounds good. So I will give you both a last word, and then I'll close out the show for the evening. So Cheryl, any last words for the audience?
Communications rocks. Never forget it. Do your best. Learn all you can, and use it for all it's worth.
Wonderful. And Jeff?
Yeah, my mantra is the same. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's about whoever our intended audience is. Find whatever their pain is and solve that pain, not your pain.
Excellent advice. So, well, thank you both for joining us this evening. As always, the audience, it's because of you that we do this. Without you, we wouldn't be able to host this show. So thank you so much for watching. And until next time, dream it, believe it, achieve it. Have a good night, everyone.